Number 10. La Ciudad Perdida. Ciudad Perdida is a little-known ruin in Colombia that was once the seat of power for a great and powerful civilization. The ruins themselves are located in one of the most diverse coastal mountain ranges on the planet, the Sierra Nevada Mountains. They can be found at an altitude of 19,000 feet. Long ago, the native Tairona people built roughly 200 settlements in the area, with Ciudad Perdida being the largest. It was also the center of the culture's political and economic life. At least it was, until the people who lived here all mysteriously vanished without a trace. Even today, historians have no idea what happened to these ancient people or why their magnificent city was abandoned. It happened in the 16th century, with Ciudad Perdida being lost and forgotten for 400 years, until it was rediscovered in 1975. In 2019, archaeologists working with the Global Heritage Fund completed mapping of the area and found at least 200 structures over a space of 80 acres. These structures included dwellings, huge plazas, feasting zones, and a complex network of water canals. It was plain to see that it was once an impressive place. But archaeologists are still in the dark about the people who lived here. We know they were an influential civilization. We just don't know what motivated them, what they believed in, or why they disappeared, never to be seen again. The city itself dates back to 1200 years, meaning the Tairona people had probably been living in the area for much longer. Their city stood for 800 years, yet they left behind no details of their culture. Number 9. Gaochang. Gaochang is the ruin of an ancient city located in the middle of the nothingness of the Gobi Desert. Amidst the barren desert, Gaochang is a crumbling mass of stone that was once a prosperous trading hub on the Silk Road. Amazingly, it has withstood the test of time and the brutal desert weather. It's actually one of the best preserved ruins anywhere in China and was added to the World Heritage List in 2014. The city was first built as a garrison back in the 1st century BC. It was also ruled by several different dynasties as the Gaochang Prefecture, the Gaochang Kingdom, and even the West Prefecture. The people who first ruled the city were the Jushi, then the Han, one of the most notorious civilizations to ever dominate China. The Jushi leaders actually had to pledge their fealty to the Han dynasty sometime around 300 BC. In 460, the Han appointed one of their own, a man named Kan Bojiao, to rule over the city and district as the king of Gaochang. This was when it became its own vassal kingdom. But the city would not last forever. By the time the 14th century rolled around, the city had been decimated because of warfare between the Mongolians and the Uyghurs. After standing proud for over 2,000 years, the ancient city is still in pretty amazing shape. Many of its walls and foundations and palaces are still standing. Number 8. Baalbek. Baalbek is one of the most fascinating cities in the ancient world. It was a great Phoenician city located in what is Lebanon today, just slightly north of Beirut. It's also one of the oldest cities in the world, inhabited as a metropolis as early as 9000 BC. It grew from a small village to a big city and became the most important place of pilgrimage anywhere in the ancient world. People came from miles around just to worship the Phoenician sky god Baal, him and his consort, the Queen of Heaven, Astarte. In the center of the city was once a giant temple dedicated to these two deities, though the temple was later destroyed and the Romans built their very own temple of Jupiter over its ruined foundation. Here's where things get serious. As you may already know, the Phoenicians were one of the most powerful early civilizations. They built the city of Baalbek to be magnificent and grand, and this includes the temple that is now gone. But scientists and archaeologists still can't figure out how they managed to build the temple. The reason is that the stones they used to build it seem way too big. According to world history, archaeologists have already discovered the cornerstones of the earlier temple, as well as parts of its retaining wall. The rocks used to build the structure were ginormous, with some of them being up to 300 tons. Experts are mystified and clueless as to how these ancient and powerful people managed to move the stones to where they wanted. They seem impossible to manipulate into place. One of the heaviest stones found is 900 tons, which is honestly absurd. Number 7. Tsun San. Tsun San. Try saying that 5 times fast. It means place of hummingbirds and was once the capital of the Purepecha state in what is today the Mexican state of Michoacan. The Purepecha emerged on the scene in the first part of the 14th century. It actually prevented the Aztec from expanding into the northwest. They ended up being the second biggest Mesoamerican state until the Spanish showed up and tore everything down. However, very little is actually known about these people, as there's not a single surviving written record around today. The only accounts of the society come from the Franciscan priest Fray Jerónimo de Acala in the year 1540. He described the oral histories passed down to him from the elite members of the Purepecha. These people actually tried to make a bargain. The ruler of the time, Tangaksuan II, sent emissaries to the Spanish after the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan was ruled by the Spanish in 1521. They wanted to avoid being wiped out as well, seeing as they knew if the Aztecs fell, there was no hope for them. When a Spanish force arrived at the great city of Tsun San, they were met by a war party of 100,000 Purepecha soldiers. Even though they vastly outnumbered the Spanish, they chose to submit. It was a bad move because the Spanish betrayed them and the ruler was executed in 1530. Over the next few decades, the Spanish slowly destroyed this culture until erasing it completely and reducing the city of Tsun San to the ugly ruin that it is today. What do you think would have happened if the Purepecha never submitted to the Spanish? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 6. Teotihuacan. Speaking of Mesoamerican ruins, Teotihuacan is definitely the most famous ruin anywhere in modern Latin America. It's located just 30 miles from Mexico City with a history that dates back to the year 400 BC. Within just 800 years, by 400 AD, it was the most influential city in the region. But just hold on to your socks, because there's a lot that people don't know about Teotihuacan. It wasn't actually founded by the Aztecs. Rather, the Aztecs were the ones who discovered the city in the 1400s and gave it its name. Teotihuacan translates to the place where the gods were created. But by the time the Aztecs got there and renamed it, the city had already been abandoned for hundreds of years. According to History.com, archaeologists still don't know a whole lot about its origins, who built it, or what kind of culture ruled it before the Aztecs. One theory right now is that the Toltec civilization built the giant city, but not all scholars agree with this, seeing as the Toltec culture flourished from between 900 and 1150 AD, many hundreds of years after Teotihuacan was built. Some say the city was built by immigrants who flowed into the area after a devastating volcanic eruption. The immigrants may have belonged to various cultures, including the Zapotec and the Maya. This would mean it was a city of immigrants with a very diverse population, but in any case, the city reached its peak in 400 AD with a population of around 200,000 people. Unfortunately, scientists don't know what language they spoke, if it was a mix of many, or even what kind of politics they practiced. However, they are fairly certain that the priests at Teotihuacan practiced a lot of ritual sacrifice to appease whatever strange gods were worshipped there. Number 5. Malta Temples. The impossibly huge megalithic temples of Malta were built between 3 periods, starting in 3600 BC. The temples are located on what is today the island country of Malta, but over 5,500 years ago, the island was occupied by Bronze Age people. These people are nameless, they left behind no written record, and yet, the buildings that they created are ranked today as some of the earliest freestanding stone structures on the planet. There are 3 main temples on the island, with each monument boasting a huge advancement in building technology for humanity. The temples were filled with pieces of art. They were built with impressively advanced layouts with courtyards, inner chambers, and external walls. In fact, according to UNESCO World Heritage, all evidence points to an extremely organized society here. It's just that archaeologists can't say exactly which society that was. The absence of evidence isn't that surprising though, considering the temples here are actually older than Stonehenge. Plus, they are significantly more advanced than anything being built in the United Kingdom back then. The truth is that a very advanced race of people flourished on this tiny island, and nobody knows where they came from or what happened to them. Number 4. Ko Khair. Ko Khair is located in the abandoned forests of the Cambodian north. It was once the capital of a great Angkorian empire that ruled the region from between 928 to 944 AD. Just a few miles from Siem Reap, the largest temple complex anywhere in the world. The ruins boast an impressive pyramid nearly 100 feet high with 7 tiers. Even today, it is one of the most inaccessible archaeological sites in the world, deep in the jungle and largely covered with unexploded mines that could literally blow your limbs off. And yet, it is an impressive place with at least 42 major structures. It's barely even been studied by archaeologists. It has seen absolutely no restoration work, and if nothing is done soon, it will be lost forever. But who built Ko Khair, and why is it such a ruin today? It was constructed by King Jayavarman IV. The great temple pyramid in the city was built to worship the god of happiness, Tribhuvanesvara. There are 96 temples in total, though most of them are no longer standing today. The city prospered only until the king died. After 944, the capital was changed back to the area around Angkor Wat, and Ko Khair was deserted. Number 3. Vilsi Church. The Vilsi Church was constructed sometime around the year 1300 as one of the very first Christian churches anywhere on the North American continent. Its ruins are in southern Greenland. Yes, Greenland is technically North America. It was built by Norse settlers from Scandinavia who were attracted to the fertile soil of the Greenlandic fjords. Many of these settlers built estates, many began farming, and somebody decided they should build a church too. This is actually pretty shocking considering the church was erected just shortly after Christianity became known in Greenland. Amazingly, this fascinating ruin still stands today. While the settlers that moved to Greenland were not an imposing force by themselves, they are an excellent example of the far-reaching power of the Norsemen, who at this point were just coming out of the Viking era. They spread across all of Europe and became the first European settlers to populate Greenland. They held festivals throughout the year, dozens and maybe even hundreds of ships were anchored on the sides of the fjord, and farms were spread across all the inhabitable land of the south. But then, they all left. The Norsemen vanished without a trace, leaving nothing behind except ruins. Today, the Vilsi Church is a reminder of the mysterious centuries the Norse spent flourishing on Greenland before their strange and sudden departure. Number 2. Ephesus. The ruins of the city of Ephesus can be found in modern Turkey. At one point, this was the most important Greek city and one of the key trading hubs in the Mediterranean. The city, although initially belonging to the wildly powerful Greek civilization, ended up changing hands after being conquered several times. It was one of the first cities that promoted Christian evangelism and even today is a pilgrimage site for Christians. One of the coolest parts about Ephesus is the legend surrounding how it was built. It's said that the Ionian prince Androclus founded the city in the 11th century BC. The prince was searching for a new Greek settlement when he sought the oracles of Delphi for assistance. They told him that the location of the settlement would be revealed to him by a boar and a fish. Then, as the prince was one day frying a fish over an open fire, it flopped out of the frying pan and into the bushes. In the confusion, the bushes caught fire and a wild boar ran out of them. Androclus stood on that very spot and decided it was where he would build his new settlement. However, nobody knows if this story is really true. In any case, the powerful Greeks lost the city to the Persian Empire, who later lost it to Alexander the Great. The Egyptians eventually ruled the city, and then the Pergamon, and later the Roman Empire. It was ultimately destroyed by the Goths in 262 AD and has been a ruin ever since. Number 1. The ruins at Rapa Nui. When you talk about Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island, people tend to think of the giant heads, which are called moai. But in fact, there are actually other archaeological ruins on the island where the ancient people used to congregate. One of the main ruins is Ahu'akahanga, where King Motu Mara is allegedly buried. It's a legit tomb over 200 feet long, though archaeologists haven't found any bones yet. Some are unsure whether the king was ever buried in the tomb or not. When it was built, it had 13 of the giant moai statues surrounding it, with each statue about 21 feet in height. The statues were also decorated in hieroglyphics. Today, the statues lay in the grass, broken and weathered. The people who lived on Easter Island prospered as fishermen until something happened that wiped out almost every last person on the island, resulting in the neglect of the statues and the ruination of their villages. Archaeologists still don't know what happened here, making the ruins on Rapa Nui some of the most mysterious in the whole world. Thanks for watching! Which of these ruins would you love to visit the most? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe and come back again for more awesome videos. See you next time, bye!